All right, what's going on, everybody? Back with another episode for you. This time I want to talk about the NBA. Talk about the NBA. There's only one story that's really dominating the headlines right now. It's the situation with John Morant. Once again, if you saw me on Sports Empire Network Tuesday night for the Big Three podcast, we went in depth into all this. Myself, the crew on there, we talked about it for quite a while. Most of us were on basically on the same page. It's it's been probably the most surprising story of the season. I would say off the court, obviously, because there's been some surprises on the court, of course, but off the court, probably the most surprising story in a few seasons. Now, in terms of sports, it's probably on par with Deshaun Watson. We know Deshaun Watson was seen as a model citizen in the NFL. Then we learned about the massages, shocking at first. Then with each story that came on after that, it was like what's going on here? Was this guy hiding this all the time? Is he secretly some type of whatever? So the same shock from the first incident with Deshaun Watson, and with each one that came after that, because a lot of fans are just shocked at all this coming out about him. I feel like the John Morant situation's similar. Now, Morant is away from the team for a couple of games. Nothing's come down from the league yet, but there is an active investigation as to the gun that was in the Instagram live video in the Colorado nightclub. The NBA is concerned whether that gun ever made it onto team facility, not just like practice arena. Did it make it onto the team plane? If it did, apparently there's a nice provision in NBA rules that state that happens 50 game suspension just like that. So I'm assuming that's the next shoe to drop here because the investigation is currently ongoing. Colorado police are looking into it. If that does happen, I do wonder what happens with Morant, because if it's just a couple of games, they find out the gun wasn't on any of the team facilities, he comes back, maybe gets booed a few places, maybe some Memphis fans boo him or something like that, but I think ultimately he moves past it. If it's a 50 game suspension, like you saw from the title, like, is this a heel turn? Just to borrow from wrestling terminology. That's not to make light of it or anything like that, because the altercation with the 17-year-old kid, what happened there, this gun possibly being on the team plane. I believe something like Steven Adams had a players only meeting talking about we need to do better, blah blah blah, stuff like that. Then I guess literally that night, him going to the nightclub with it. Like it's just a string of poor decisions. I wouldn't sit here and say John Morant's a dumb guy. Some in other walks of life, around this country may look at John Morant and say he's a thug. NBA's full of them. We know that crowd. Trust me. We know who those are. So I'm not speaking to them, because no matter what happens here, the league's full of thugs, always will be. I'm looking at this from the aspect of, if this is a one-time thing, well, I guess multiple occasions around one time, but this is the only incident with this, you chalk it up to 23-year-old, made a bad decision, kind of spiraled out of control a little bit, learned from it, became more mature, whatever. You stand up, you clap for him, all good. Now, if this leads to, not necessarily every year, maybe in the off season, for consecutive years or something, we hear little things like this about Morant, then we could have a problem. We could see a guy who's maybe bounces around. For as talented as he is, could become uh what's the word? Outcast in NBA circles. Because teams won't be able to trust him. You'd have to worry about obviously his leadership ability. You have to make sure your team's in a perfect spot to bring on somebody like that. I don't think it gets that far. I'm gonna put trust into John Morant that he'll learn from this. If he has to trim some of his inner circle, bring in new people into his inner circle, he'll recognize that. He'll do that. It might be tough conversations with some people, but he's willing to go there because he understands that once guys like LeBron move on, Curry's getting older. Morant was one of those of the younger generation that fans liked. Younger fans. I think he was second or third in jersey sales, so clearly he's popular around the league. He would have been seen as one of the faces for the next generation of the NBA. Now with this, we'll have to see how that affects that. But if he comes out of it, like I said, looking mature, he uses the time away to reestablish himself in the Memphis community, gets them back on his side, at least the ones that he may have lost with this already. We see him on the court. He's with his daughter a lot. He will sign autographs for fans, have her give it to them, stuff like that. He keeps going with that. I think he can definitely rebuild his image for sure. Now, yes, there was a gun involved. He didn't shoot anybody. As far as I know, he hasn't fired the gun. So this could be seen as just a minor thing in the grand scheme of things. I still think, like I said, it's bad decision making because we know this day and age, you go up to somebody with a gun on you, that situation could turn left real quick. As a guy in Morant who's blessed to be in the situation that he's in right now, to have it all crumble around him because of a misjudgment like that should scare him. He may, like I said, lose sponsors or whatever. That can be recouped. We've seen it happen before. The biggest key from this is, can he learn from it? He came out and said he made a mistake. Oh, good. Words are one thing. Fans now will want to see, what do you actually do about it? Now, I've talked about this before. Memphis went from almost a darling young team. Could have been seen as maybe the next Golden State Warriors. Because remember, the Warriors were built through the draft. Green, Curry, Thompson. It's like fans saw those guys grow together, reach the mountaintop, win some championships. I feel like Memphis was seen as that team that fans are like, maybe they could do the same thing. Now, not so much. Dillon Brooks, I probably talk about him way too much, to be honest with you, but I feel like he's turned people off. This Morant thing is going to turn people off. Memphis has gone from probably one of the more likable teams to now one of the more unlikable ones in the NBA. Don't know if they are the most unlikable. I did pose that as a question on the podcast page on Facebook. So if you do join it, that question is still up. Feel free to give your opinion. I don't know if they're the most unlikable. I also couldn't, sit here right now, name off the top of my head like 2 or 3 teams that are probably more unlikable than Memphis right now. Maybe Golden State. I know a lot of people still don't like Golden State. for different reasons, of course. Because of them winning so much, that's part of it. Memphis hasn't won anything. The unlikability is with the players on the team right now. But yeah, I really hope John Morant rebounds from this. I didn't have to get into too many details. But I mean, I basically told you everything. That it is happening. It's involving the gun that was in the Instagram live video. NBA needs to know, was that ever present on a NBA facility? That's, like I said, practice arena. If he was crazy enough to have it in an arena, team playing something like that, that's the next step. If that happens, like I said, 50-game suspension most likely will be handed down to him. And if that happens, we will definitely revisit this. But for now, that's kind of all we know. That's the current situation with it. I'd be interested to see if Morant steps back on the court for the rest of the regular season. I doubt he gets on the court while the investigation's going. That'd be a little awkward. Even when the investigation's over, I guess depending on the findings, that might give a timetable for when he could return. I just find it hard to see him coming back during the regular season. Playoffs, we don't know. We'll have to see when we get there, but it's a tricky situation for Memphis right now. Memphis is the second seed in the West, but they have teams behind them that could make a move on them. So if Morant misses an extended period of time, that it will now affect the rest of the team. Let's say Morant comes back next year. Will that create distress in the locker room between players? Could Morant end up splitting that locker room? That's another factor to this. With these teams, these guys are around each other so much that, if you want to say cliques, groups are formed, especially when it comes to a star player. You may have some players who might want Morant gone, while others will be like, "Nah, he's our leader. We got to stand behind him," and then that could create whatever. Once again, probably thinking too far ahead, but there's about 20 different ways that this story could go. We'll have to see which path we end up going down. So for now, let me know down in the comment section what you think about John Morant. What do you think the league should do with him? You think the league should hand down a suspension outside of the team couple of games or whatever? Yeah, let me know down in the comment section, and we'll see. We'll see. I will definitely reply back and have a discussion down there with all of you. But thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. If you did, you know what you have to do. Hit the like button, subscribe, share, notification bell, all the good stuff. As I mentioned before, I do have a new group page for Chomping at the Bit on Facebook. Give it a search, hit the join button. Once you do join, get interactive with us. By us, I mean the other members in the group, obviously. Episodes go up there, so you can listen to them there. Pose polls, put questions in there. So really trying to build off the interactive nature of this in 2023. So we really appreciate that from all of you. Thanks again. Be safe out there. God bless. And I'll catch you in the next episode. All right? Have a good one. I'll see you.